It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand. Right.
And good morning, everyone. Good morning, Peggy.
Hey, good morning, Mike.
How's everybody doing out there? In fact, I need to see. I'm sure. Let's see. You've already said hello to everybody, and we'll see who pops up in our chat stream in just a second. Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki on a very ominous day. I don't know what it's like where you are, Peggy, but it is.
It's getting dark. It's humid, but the wind hasn't hit yet.
It is night here in the city of Chicago. It's 9 a.m. on a Sunday morning. For those of you who watch and listen to us live, that's when we appear. But when you see the forecast from meteorologist Rick DiMaio, you're going to do like my cat Lagata does. You're going to run under the couch and hide and stay there. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to make sure there's nothing on the floor of my basement because we have a bunch of rain scheduled to come in.
Sounds like you're going to get a lot in the city for sure.
Oh, my goodness. And south of the city, even worse. Yeah. There might be, you got to see some of the maps that Rick sent us. They're forecasting 3 to 4 inches and possibly more in certain sections of central Illinois.
Lake County, not so much.
And the interesting thing is, and again, I know there's those of you who like to listen to our show and watch the Rick DiMaio segment. Some of you probably wish I would go away and we would just bring in Rick right now. But this is a tease, so you can stick around to see that. Dan Costa says it's dark and light rain already where he is. And it didn't save that. Okay, are you guys, you can see me? We had a glitch. The stream just went down. We're going to fix it, and I'm going to be right back up, okay? I've lost Domenico. I hope we get him. But are you guys, you can see me?
Was that us that froze? Somebody just said we froze.
Just went down. We're going to fix it, and it shut down. It did that shutdown thing again. So, all right,
it's on Facebook, guys. It's streaming right now.
Okay.
Somebody.
So let's pop this back up, and
but all this audio is going out on Facebook right now.
I know, I understand. And so we need to That's still streaming, but the other streams are probably down. So we're going to shut this down and be right back.
It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio. Flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in demand.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in demand, right?
Well,
I've heard this song before.
I know. I decided we're just starting it all over. When life hands you lemons and dark skies on a Sunday morning, and then the system decides to just shut down inexplicably, you just go with it and you start over, and you do what you can. And these are the marvels of. And Snappy J Dog is already saying, welcome back.
And
So
Pete says, look forward to Mike and Peggy 2.0 Sunday morning, new and improved. And before we were so rudely cut off by the Borg,
oh,
Andrea Whiteley is watching us from Perth, Australia.
oh really? Oh well, Andrea, I apologize for the technical problem there, but that's what happens. And I'm going to skip all that stuff that we were talking
Bring
about.
in the guests. Bring them in.
We had rain. So what I will say is that at 8 o'clock this morning, I was listening to Lumpin' Radio in Chicago because we are also on a WLPN FM 105.5. And the show that happened to be on this morning was the show we did on October 2nd, which is about Bell Bowl Prairie out at Chicago Rockford International Airport. It's pretty much surrounded by Chicago Rockford International Airport. And it was a good show. It was a really good show, and it's an important show because this is a remnant prairie in Illinois. We used to be called the Prairie State. I think one of our guests said that, actually. We used to be called the Prairie State. Well, we're still called the Prairie State, but we need to change the name. Because it doesn't apply anymore. And it's about how this remnant prairie is in danger of being bulldozed in a week from tomorrow, if something isn't done. I mean, who knows how fast that could happen. So let's just skip with all of the formalities here. And I will say that it's dark and stormy, and Rick DiMaio is going to get to that in
It
the
was a dark and stormy morn.
yeah, he'll get to it in the second part of the show, and it's ominous, and there's going to be lots of rain. But you know what? We might lose a prairie as well. So let us bring in our guests here, and I'm going to check to make sure that all of their microphones are on and that everything's working and that everything doesn't shut down again. I don't think it's going to this time. It's just a wonder of technology here. So look on to the right of you and me, and I'm going to adjust my camera here a little bit. That's Kerry Leigh, who was with us back on October 2nd. She is the executive director, and by accident, I called you the CEO in the tease we did the other day, video tease of this.
But she's promoted.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's a real difference, but she's the executive director of the Natural Land Institute, and the Natural Land Institute's mission is to create an enduring legacy of natural land in northern Illinois for people, plants, and animals. And by the way, they're among the groups leading the charge to save Bell Bowl Prairie. Thank you for being with us again, Kerry.
Oh, thank you, Mike and Peggy. I really appreciate it.
And then at the lower left corner, for those of you listening in quadraphonic sound, it's Domenico D'Alessandro. He's a regenerative design consultant. He's now retired, but he was president of D'Alessandro and Associates in Chicago. He and I have a common background. He worked for WRD Environmental for a while, and he's a special interest in urban ecology and regenerative designs for water quality management and habitat creation within the urban context. Domenico, thank you so much for being here this morning.
Thank you. I welcome the opportunity.
And we're going to get to Domenico because he's got an alternative plan. Mm-hmm. That's the point of this show this morning. We talked about how the prairie was in dire straits several weeks ago. It still is. A lot has happened. We're going to go through some of that in just a second. But we're also going to have Jen Kuroda, who's in the lower right. She's the president of the Sinnissippi Audubon Society, a chapter of the National Audubon Society, which is located in Rockford, Illinois. The chapter was founded in 1972, is committed to wildlife preservation, but she's also the president of the Audubon Council of Illinois. The council represents 11 National Audubon Society chapters located throughout the state of Illinois. Jen, thank you so much for being with us as well.
Thank you.
Okay, here we are. and keep your fingers crossed everything doesn't shut down again. And I'm writing to those vMix people and say, what's going on here? Okay. Kerry, we're going to start with you because when we talked about this several weeks ago, first of all, a lot of people were just finding out that the prairie was in danger, including you, including your organization, which, according to what you've said before, really didn't have much of an inkling about this until August of this year, when bulldozers and other heavy machinery started showing up next to Bell Bowl Prairie on the airport grounds. Since then, there's been press. It's good to see that some of the press has got, not everybody's gotten on board, but more and more, little by little. In fact, just the other day.
And nationally, too.
Yeah, nationally. The Chicago Tribune jumped on it finally this week, but there are others who have been ahead of the game. Kudos to WTTW because they were in on it early. Of course, the Rockford papers were reporting on this from the get-go. And then the hue and cry from the environmental community has been very loud. As I mentioned on last week's show, the Open Lands Luncheon was picketed by some protesters with a sign, Save Bell Bowl Prairie, right when Illinois Senator Dick Durbin was speaking. That got some press. And there have been op-eds and more. and people writing letters, thousands of letters to Governor J.B. Pritzker and to Durbin and to Senator Tammy Duckworth and to local legislators. How would you describe the impact of that right now, Kerry?
So, the impact of this grassroots campaign has been amazing. And I must say that when we first started this and started to get the word out, we really didn't have any idea that the grassroots campaign would take off in the way that it has. And not only has everybody been pitching in, but we have really creative minds who are coming up with solutions like Domenico. So the grassroots effort has actually extended beyond the state of Illinois. And we have had people from California helping us. We've had people from Alaska, many of them who have some roots in Illinois, but it's just captured the imagination of not just environmentalists, but people who care about what's happening to our natural world. It's been phenomenal. And the letters that have gone to our governor and our state senators and representatives, they've been gotten over 4,000. And there have been so many that I do know that the governor this week called a team meeting for his entire team to talk about this. So we haven't heard yet about any results of that meeting or any actions that might come out of it, but that's a good start.
Yes, it is a good start. However, this is information that you're privy to because you've been kind of the tip of the spear in this effort to preserve the prairie. In public, however, a lot of these legislators, policymakers have been, shall I say, ominously silent. Why do you think that is?
Well, I really think it's a matter of, one, maybe they don't have all the information, although we have had calls with many of them and to explain the process. But I really can't answer that, why they haven't come out publicly. I do know that our Senator Stottleman,
and that's a state senator.
He's a state senator for our region, and he had pledged to see if he could negotiate some sort of conversation with the airport about this alternative design, because he understands, as do all of the legislators, they understand that our message is not to stop the airport expansion, but to come up with an alternative design so that we can have the airport expansion, we can have the jobs, we can have the economic growth, but we don't need to lose the prairie. We can still keep the prairie. And there are lots of ways to do that. I don't think that the Airport Authority and IDOT and the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, I don't think they understand.
Illinois Department of Transportation.
And the Illinois Department of Transportation. I don't think they understand what they have, frankly, that this is an ancient 8,000-year-old dry gravel hill prairie that has taken that long to mature and survive. And, you know, it's what Domenico is going to be talking about is, why is a parking lot so precious and an 8,000-year-old rare prairie so expendable?
And it's not just a parking lot, but that's sort of a key point. And there have been other suggestions among them. Well, we'll dig it up and we'll move it someplace else. And somebody in one of the articles that I've got listed on my blog post says, well, that's equivalent to taking a 500-year-old grandfather clock and smashing it to pieces, and I forget, using it for something else.
Roasting marshmallows.
Roasting
Throwing
marshmallows.
it in the fire and roasting marshmallows.
Here's my analogy. I came up with this by myself. My feeling is it's like going to the Tribune Tower and saying, well, you know what? You don't really need the Great Wall of China. We can take that down because there's a brick of it in the Tribune Tower downtown, and you can see the brick of the Great Wall of China.
We moved the brick.
Yeah, it's there. So take down the Great Wall because we've got a brick of it here. In fact, we could take it down and let's put bricks all over the world, and then everybody will have a piece of the Great Wall, and it'll be exactly the same thing. And it's just a lack of understanding of how ecosystems work and biology. And I guess, Kerry, that is something that needs to get across. How can you teach that? It's something Rob Telfer, when he was on the show with us on October 2nd, said it's because people are not connected to prairies anymore. We're not connected to prairies because we don't have any. We've lost so many of them. There's no resonance here. Even now, in the 21st century, you can walk in a redwood forest and you can be amazed. All right, lots of people do that. There's so little prairie left that it's hard to walk in a prairie the way it was created by nature.
It doesn't have the grandeur, as it were, of the redwoods. You know, people look at it.
Well, it did. It did.
But now.
Yeah.
So it's not underappreciated, undervalued.
Right. Absolutely.
So where are we? Where are we with your efforts? Obviously, as you said, there's some movement behind the scenes. Does it really look like they're going to fire up the bulldozers on November 1st?
Well, we're still hopeful for a political solution because George Fell, the founder of the Natural Land Institute and also the founder of the Nature Conservancy, he, about 40 years ago, the airport wanted to dig this prairie up for gravel, and he appealed to the governor, and the governor stopped it, and George stood in front of the bulldozer and stopped it. So we need to stop it again, but now we also need to protect it permanently so that we don't have to go through this. This is the third time. George's father also saved the prairie. So we're working really hard. We're going to be putting out newspaper ads this week, some full-page ads, highlighting Domenico's design. So I'd really love him to share that with you and the concept behind it.
Well, we'd like to, but we really don't have time for that. Actually, I'm kidding. Due to technical difficulties, we can't do that on today's show. No, of course we're going to do that, and I'm teasing people with that. We've got some of the designs that he has made, and I want to get to him in a second. But before that, I want to talk to Jen. Yes, Peggy.
And I reposted, Arthur Melville Pearson is watching us. He's the biographer of George Fell. And he says, he posted as the biographer, something just moved on Restream. As the biographer of George Fell, I know how hard he and his father worked to save Bell Bowl Prairie the first two times. The third time needs to be the charm. Time to dedicate this rare ecological gem by dedicating it as an Illinois nature preserve.
I can't believe the folks who are watching this right now and are Julian Hoffman, who was on our show earlier this year, an author and naturalist. He writes, "They don't understand what they have. Well said, Kerry. This is all too frequently the underlying issue when it comes to threatened places and all that stands to be lost with their destruction. Their accumulated ecological and cultural meaning, their vital importance to wildlife communities, the history of a landscape, and it speaks to a larger theme of how we encourage a greater valuation of such unique and increasingly rare places." Thank you, Julian. I'm glad you're watching as well. So let us go to Jen. That's a starting point. Tell us how Sinnissippi Audubon is involved in and what we stand to lose in the prairie if it goes away?
Sure. Even historically, Sinnissippi Audubon was involved in speaking out against the expansion of the airport. And even in the 70s, there was another proposal for expansion, and Sinnissippi Audubon was involved at that time. But really, Audubon is really about birds and their habitat. And there was a report that came out a couple years ago where it was noted that since the 1970s, 3 billion species of birds, we've lost that amount of bird population. And, the majority of that is due to habitat loss, climate change, fragmented habitat. And then if you look at the subspecies of grassland birds, if you look at the group of grassland birds from that overall population, 53% of the grassland bird population has declined in the past 50 years. So preserving prairies is very, very important for maintaining habitat so we can continue to have these birds.
And what has Sinnissippi done now? Have you been out to the prairie recently? I know that it's difficult to get there. There are warnings from the airport. This is private. I mean, it sounds as if even the access to the prairie in the last few weeks has changed dramatically.
It has. I went out on the 17th of September because that's when I probably found out maybe a week before that in talking with a couple people, and finally went out there to take a look for myself and was surprised at what had already happened. And then I had the opportunity after the board meeting on September 23rd, I think it was, to walk the prairie with Jack White. So I did have an opportunity to go out there.
Jen, can you explain who Jack White is?
Sure. Jack White is a botanist. He was, I believe, the conservation lead for the Nature Conservancy, the lead ecologist for that, or lead botanist for that group. And he also developed the Illinois Natural Areas Inventory. He developed that survey and how that survey is conducted across the state of Illinois. So he's, I was very taken aback by him because he knows so much about plants, and I know very little about plants. I know about birds. So that opportunity to walk with him on the prairie was very meaningful to me. So I do agree, people don't understand what's out there. I knew the place and have known the place as a great place to go birding. And listening to Jack and making those connections about what makes Bell Bowl Prairie so special, it was very emotional for me. You start to realize the magnitude of what is about to be lost if we don't do something.
And you alluded to this. Bell Bowl Prairie is a Category 1 Illinois Natural Areas Inventory, or INAI, site. Mm-hmm. It's a designation granted by state biologists that reflects the site's very high ecological quality. It's a gravel prairie, and that's even rarer. I think folks need to know that it right now represents about 1/4 of all the remnant gravel prairie in the state of Illinois. So, maybe we need to start using numbers like that, which is you're going to destroy 1/4 of the remnant gravel prairie left in the entire state in a day. Is this what's going to happen? And as we mentioned on the show several weeks ago, again, listening to it again this morning, I was struck by it that the INAI recommendation is just a recommendation. It's just an observation. Kerry, I think you mentioned this when we talked about it before. It has no power. It is just the idea that, this is a high quality prairie and you should be paying attention. And the problem is so many of these sites are on private lands and not on public lands. If they're on public lands, they're generally protected. But on private lands, we inform the people and say, hey, hope you save it. Hope you do something good with it. All right, that takes us to Domenico D'Alessandro, And I want to ask you first, tell us a little bit about your background, Domenico, and how did you get involved in this issue?
Well, my background is basically in landscape architecture, but for the last 15 years, I've really been concerned with the urban ecology issue because of the impact that it has on the natural issue. And I began to walk away from the traditional landscape practices and planning practices. I think they are about 25 years behind the curve here. We have to really catch up if we want to preserve our environment. So my background is basically trying to figure out how to create habitat niches within the urban context. I have to say one project that I was involved in that is pertinent here. I was involved in the Orange County Great Park project in Irvine, California, and that also dealt with an airport. It was the El Toro Marine Air Base, huge airport, and it was being converted into a housing project, and the town of Irvine asked for a substantial park in return to let the developer build thousands and thousands of homes. So we were tearing down the airport, and the project was really ambitious. We were going to recreate a canyon system, and I was part of the team that was to decide to give the criteria to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And we had the greatest minds in the nation working on it. And the best we could do was to come up with a system where we would be target specific habitats. So we would pick a species of concern and design a habitat for that species, knowing full well that it would take 100, 200, maybe even 300 years for those systems to evolve to a mature ecosystem. So when they say, oh yeah, we can move a plant here or we can seed it there, that is a very ignorant and very dangerous mindset, especially coming from IDNR and people like this. We know that we cannot do that. Every major biologist, every major scientist says that we cannot reproduce a pristine ecosystem. We can only produce a synthesized version. And we talk about birds and butterflies and things that we see, but there are millions of microbes underneath the soil, things that we don't see, the mycelium connections and all that, that we don't even take into consideration. So I think that we unfortunately we suffer from a God syndrome, and we have to get out of that. And given that these systems are so precious, so rare, the best thing to do is preserve every little bit that we have left.
I want to ask you, a God syndrome, meaning we think we're gods.
We think we can recreate anything. We think that we can technologize our way out of it. And unfortunately, we've been proven wrong time and time again.
Mm.
I mean, look at the state that we're in. A report just 2 days ago was saying that we could be losing 1 million creatures a year with
Wow.
climate change. I don't understand how we can stand by and use the practices from the 1950s that basically created the problem today. And I think that's what their plan is. I think their plan is right out of the 1950s, 60s, and it needs to be corrected.
And something else you said really resonated with me. What's going to happen here is we're going to break because I have to pay some bills. But when we come back, we're going to begin looking at the designs that you presented at a public meeting last Tuesday. And I was sitting in on that public meeting, and the comments ranged. They were all over the place, from conspiracy theories to people saying, yeah, let's dig up the plants and move them. when I do garden talks, and this is on obviously a much smaller scale, but folks, even in your own backyard, there's something called the soil food web. And I try to explain what the soil food web is, and I think sometimes I'm able to scratch the surface of that and get people to get an inkling of it, but it's the idea that the biology is there, and everything interacts. I say it's like the I want to say inner tubes. It's like the internet, only dirty, because everything is connected, and it involves macro and micro organisms and soil tilth and things that bind and everything that holds together, and it's about communities, and you can't just lift up an entire community and move it someplace else. You can move
a portion of that community.
Right. You can move one part of it, but you can't do it en masse. You have to recreate it. You mentioned mature systems. There's by some measure, some people say old growth has to be for like trees has to be 200 years at least, and it's so you can't cut down old growth trees and say, but don't worry, trees are a renewable resource. That's a comment that people make all the time. We'll just plant more trees. Well, yeah, and then in 200 years, come back and we'll have a different ecosystem because you already altered it. You can't recreate what was there that is there now. You can't take it away and expect it to come back exactly the same way. So, is that about right, Domenico?
That's correct. Yeah, and I mean we forget the incredible amount of information we have and philosophy and teachings. You know, E.O. Wilson's biophilia. We have John Muir, who started the whole thing. We have George Fell and thousands of other people. Aldo Leopold. I mean, we're in Aldo Leopold's land, and we forget his message. I suggest that these people read the Sand County Almanac. I mean, this is really an ignorant approach to this planning.
All right, those are our guests. Wonderful comment just came in that asks, are there petitions? Of course there are petitions. And a couple of the websites you should know about. One is Save Bell Bowl Prairie.org. And that is become a really go-to site. It has lists of people you can call. It has links to petitions. It has information about all of this. And there's a link on our website, MikeNowak.net, that will take you to a petition.
Right on the homepage.
Right on the homepage. You can also go on Facebook to Save Bell Bowl Prairie. That gets posted.
There's a Facebook group, that you can join.
Yeah, it's a group that's got a couple of thousand people and is growing every day. If you want to get involved, it's not that hard right now. All right, Kerry Leigh, Domenico D'Alessandro, Jen Kuroda, thank you. We're going to be right back. We'll take a look at what Domenico has in mind for a way we might save the prairie. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki, and we'll be right back.
I have a choice. I can get the COVID vaccine or not.
So I'm doing my research.
Talking to friends about their side effects.
Reading about vaccines.
And finding out how thoroughly they were tested for safety.
I know we can all get back to the things we love without fear of getting COVID.
Like travel and hanging with friends. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Because I still have some more questions.
But the more I learn, the more comfortable I feel about getting the vaccine.
You can help slow climate change in 2021 by composting. And you don't even need a backyard. By composting communally in multi-unit buildings across Chicagoland, Collective Resource Compost has diverted 7,000 tons of food scrap since 2010. CRC brings you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter, they swap it out, and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Let us reintroduce our guest briefly. Kerry Leigh is the executive director of the Natural Land Institute. Domenico D'Alessandro is a I can't say that word. Regenerative. Yes. Oh, thank you, Peggy. Regenerative design consultant. And Jen Kuroda, president of the Sinnissippi Audubon Society chapter, which is located in Rockford, Illinois. We're talking about how to save Bell Bowl Prairie. So that takes us to a public meeting. And by the way, before we get to this, there's going to be more public meetings, Kerry, aren't there?
Yes, there's another one this Tuesday. So it's at 6 o'clock Central Time at the Burpee Museum in Rockford. And there's also going to be a link sent out to the meeting. The link will be available on the website, savebellbowlprairie.org. And it probably, I think, is also going to be on the Facebook page. So if you want to join in via Zoom, you're welcome to do that.
Yeah, and it's easy to do, and you can just hang out in the background and listen to folks talk about this, because by, what'd you say, Thursday is the next meeting?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, sorry.
Tuesday.
I apologize. I thought I saw something might be, and there's going to be a protest or at least a march on Thursday?
Yes, there's a group of people who are organizing a rally on Thursday because the airport board meeting is due to meet on Thursday if they don't cancel it. We're not sure if it's actually going to be held, but the rally is going to be held, and you can find information about that also on the website and the Facebook page.
All right, fantastic. And by the way, you can find a link to bellbowlprairie.org as well on my website on the homepage. We have a link both to the petition and to bellbowlprairie.org. And as I said, bellbowlprairie.org has a ton of information about this issue. Okay, Domenico, why did you decide to jump into the fray?
Well, I've been very active in the environmental community, and I've been doing this many years, and I thought that I could contribute. I saw the opportunity that this project is headed the wrong way, but it could be corrected. It could be made into a win-win situation.
Yeah, and to be brief, this is the way it's headed right now, okay? And we hope...
And what does that orange fence represent for our viewers?
I think that's the delineation of the prairie.
So that the area that they've been working already, and then the prairie is beyond that little orange fence there. So this is how close we are to losing this valuable piece of our heritage. Let's take a look at this. This is the first drawing you have. It's you can't read the writing on it, but give us a sense of what we're looking at here, Domenico.
Okay. Yeah, Mike, I would like to take the opportunity also to make a statement, because I'm afraid we might run out of time before I have a chance to say this.
Okay.
So all along we've been looking at this in order to save the prairie, and that's fine. But there's also an argument to be made on the profit. And I think the profit margin is what really stirs these people. So we can talk about the prairie for hundreds of years, and it might not reach their ears. But profit margin. So if we go back to that plan, we can see that their plan only provides space for 12 airplanes, and the proposed area that they mark as future development might accommodate another 4 or 5. So let's say that they can service 16 planes. Okay, so if we take say a margin of profit per plane is 100 units. So 100 units times 12 is 1,200. In the plan that I'm proposing, we can accommodate 20 or even 25 planes, depending on how we park them. So just from a profit point of view, we can double their profits and save the prairie. So I would like to know how the chairman of this commission can go to the mayors that appointed them and said, hey, mayor, we were so stubborn that we decided that we were going to go with the plan that gives us 50% less profit and destroys the prairie, making us eco criminals. And that's not good for branding. That's not good for branding. So I think we not only have a win-win situation with saving the prairie, but we can double the profit of the airport. And if they're concerned about the money and the jobs that this project will provide, let's do it with comparison to the profit margin. So I want to state that before we get into the details.
Okay. So what is this is the footprint here. What are we looking at?
Okay, so this is their plan. So they have a main building. That's where the merchandise gets unloaded and loaded. But I'd like you to focus on the bottom portion. And you can see employee parking, 16 plus acres. At the corner, you can see dry bottom stormwater management, 9 plus acres. At the right next to the truck yard at the bottom, dry bottom stormwater management, 4 plus acres. Next to the road that they're constructing, dry bottom stormwater management, 6 plus acres. That is land that is placed out of use for the airport. That is land wasted by them in this project. You don't make profits out of a parking lot. You don't make profits out of stormwater management. Those are consuming. Those are expenses. So you're placing a lot of expenses where you could be using that land for the profit.
Yeah.
And if we go to the next slide, you can see that they've also added another expansion to the east.
And please point out what side of the screen east. Where's north? Is it?
Oh, okay. So north is up.
Okay.
South is down. So we would have east is where their midfield cargo building 1 is, and then west is where the gravel extraction pit is.
East
and the prairie is located right in the middle through conceptual cargo.
The prairie, we can see it barely, but they cover all of it. So they're basically eliminating all the prairie. So if we go to the next slide.
Okay.
What I did, I basically outlined all those areas that I mentioned before, the parking lot and the 3 stormwater catchment basins, and I overlaid them over the prairie. And we can see how similar the areas are. They're practically the same area. So in their plan...
Wait, so let me explain. So you're saying that the amount of land involved in those 4 areas pretty much matches the amount of land that's covered by the prairie right now.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. So what they're doing with their plan is they're eliminating the acreage of virgin prairie and replacing it with a huge parking lot and 3 holes in the ground. That's what they're doing. They're swapping the prairie for a parking lot and 3 holes in the ground.
For stormwater.
For stormwater. But that area is completely useless to their operation.
Wow.
That's the point I want to make.
Yeah, there's no profit.
That same area that they're destroying in the virgin prairie, they're wasting in their plan.
All right, and those blocks can be moved elsewhere. Is that right?
Right. So right, exactly. So that's the exercise that I undertook. When I saw this, I saw, hey, this is not the amount of land that they actually need for their operation. Mm-hmm. This is wasteland. So I'm not impinging at all on their operation. So when I saw this, I thought, okay, we can do something here, because they don't need this land to carry out their profitable operation.
All right.
So if we go to the next slide, you can see I overlaid those same areas. Now I'm converting all that area into an operational profit-making venture, and therefore we can liberate the prairie simply by moving all their infrastructure down along belt line.
Moving it to the southwest.
Moving it to the southwest along belt line, and this does two important things. One, it eliminates the roads that are needed for the truck movement, because now the trucks have easy access to belt line. It's basically an in and out. So where the truck docks are, that's where the loading takes place. Mm-hmm. So you come in, you park, you load, and you go out straight. You don't need any further roads. Yet you have the truck yard right next to it. That's where you park your trucks. And then to replace the 16-acre open parking lot, which is one of our scourges, our planning scourges, we simply construct an employee parking garage. So that will benefit the employees immensely, because we are in northern country, we are in the northern area. Mm-hmm. We get snow, we get all kinds of inclement weather, and you'd rather be inside. You'd rather have your vehicle inside a parking structure than out there in the cold, and then you have to shovel the snow and remove the snow, and all that shoveling and piling up of the snow. Mm-hmm. And the de-icing that it takes to do that, plus all the gas expenditures for the big snow plows. So we are reducing their CO2 emissions. We are reducing their de-icing needs, and therefore, and also the snow piling areas, and I mean, it saves them money and it saves the environment.
All right. What is the dotted line going through the prairie on this map?
Well, that's just their construction area. That's the delineated construction zone.
All right.
Mm-hmm. And for any of our listeners who are just joining, I was going to mention that this is cargo expansion. This is not passenger air. This is cargo. So we're not talking a big terminal.
Right. Right, and if Amazon is the one that you're trying to attract, I would say it's a much better deal that you can say, hey, we can service 25 of your planes rather than 12. I think it's a good pitch to make to whoever company you're trying to service.
Yeah, and here's an aerial view here, and you can see the prairie is delineated. I mean, for those folks watching it and thinking, that prairie looks pretty endangered. It looks pretty fragile next to all of that industry and all of those buildings at an airport. And our response would be, yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
It is very fragile, isn't it, Kerry?
Yes, it sure is. It's gravel and sand, uh, and but the thing about it is, the Natural Land Institute has been managing this prairie since the 1970s at no cost to the airport. The Natural Land Institute and its partners, the Winnebago County Forest Preserve, the Boone County Forest Preserve, the Byron Forest Preserve District, other not-for-profit partners, and the Illinois DNR have been managing this prairie for them.
All right. D'Alessandro? I mean,
Yes.
Domenico?
Yeah. So in this slide, you can see the road that they already built. That's the yellowish way there that you see.
Yeah, kind of the beige road at the bottom.
Right.
Yeah, right.
So that part,
That's where the bulldozer photo is.
They're trying to go across. They've stopped at the prairie, and their idea is to cut right through it at that point.
Right. And they're cutting right through the heart of the highest quality prairie. That's the heart of the highest quality prairie.
To get to a parking lot.
To get to, so if you go to the next slide, I'll explain that. Okay, so this is the road that they're trying to construct. Now, if they have to go through the prairie, they would need to put a lot of fill in there to make up for the difference in elevation. And you can see they have a lot of riprap on the sides of the road to make it stable. Mm-hmm. And then they have to create all kinds of infrastructure in order to drain it properly. So it's not just the road, but look at the width that they need to do this road, to disrupt the prairie. I mean, they're basically killing the prairie with this road. So if you go to the next slide, so in their concept, they need this road because you can see where the trucks will leave with their loads, right? So if you go to their conceptual cargo development main building as they have it here, at that corner, that's where the trucks leave those truck docks to get to Beltline, right? So by simply moving that building, we eliminate the need for that road. That road does not need to be built. And in another thing, we eliminate another road, which is the yellow dotted line, which is the route that the trucks take to the yard, to the truck yard. Mm-hmm. So just by shifting that building to align with Beltline, we eliminate those two roads. They don't need them. Now, what they do need is another road that will take the cargo from their Millfield cargo building one that did this development to the east. So what I did here, I showed in purple how that road could actually connect back to Beltline. And it can go on an existing road that's already there. They might have to upgrade it in order to take on the heavy traffic, the heavy load, excuse me, to take on the heaviness of the trucks. But that's a much easier exercise than trying to build a road through the prairie, even in cost. And also the connection can be made at the south end by simply widening Cessna Drive. You can widen Cessna Drive by 2 lanes and have your truck route.
And that's at the bottom of this
That's
screen.
At the bottom.
Yeah.
And then you can see in the parking area with the image, I don't know how clear it is, but that parking area is only half full. And if this image is any indication of its use, then we can eliminate portion of the parking to make room for this road. And they still have all the connections that they need.
Mm-hmm. And this is where the idea of whether a parking lot is more valuable than a prairie comes in.
Exactly. So they're afraid to touch their parking lot, but they're so willing to to eliminate the prairie. I mean, I think with a little bit of finesse, things can work out. You know, we can accommodate their needs very simply and possibly a less cost to them.
Okay, so what does this final slide represent then?
Okay, so this final slide is particularly in answer to IDNR or the environmental impact assessment that basically declared that there's no significant habitat here to protect, which is a outface lie. It was based on a 1 day in August assessment, which cannot be the proper way to do an environmental impact assessment.
Well, that's one of the
But what I
points that
wanna
the airport authority is making is that, hey, we did everything by the book. We did the assessment, and it showed that there's nothing there worth saving. So let's move on.
Right, and I think that can be challenged in court very easily because there are a lot of experts around that can be expert witnesses to challenge that assumption.
One of the things that you mentioned the other day, I want to call attention to it. Okay, if you look at the upper center there, and you'll see sort of a red area, the green outline, and then red inside. That is the prairie. You think the prairie, which is now kind of isolated, can be connected to existing ecosystems in the area.
Right, and that's what this plan shows. Because the reason I think that the DNR is so quickly dismissing this prairie is because it is isolated. It is not connected to a larger ecosystem. And I think their reasoning is that, well, it's isolated, it's going to degrade, why fight it? But with the purchase of 38.5 acres, and that's the area I designate in yellow, we can do a biological connection to the Kishwaukee River corridor. So those 38.5 acres can be converted into a synthetic prairie, but it will provide a biological connection to the existing prairie.
To the corridor.
To the corridor. I think this is something that the Nature Conservancy should look at, because you can see how incredibly intricate that corridor can be at the mouth of the Kishwaukee River, where it meets the Rock River.
So
I think that is an incredible opportunity.
That's the point I want to make.
For a variety of habitats.
You're not just saving the prairie, you might possibly be improving it at this point, which I think is a remarkable consideration.
Right. I think, biological corridors are necessary because we lost a lot of habitat because of this cutting up of the pieces,
Yeah.
And then, of course, the development will come in and fill the space. So I think here with the simple purchase of 38.5 acres, it could be easily accomplished.
That's a remarkable presentation, Domenico.
Thank you.
Yes, it actually gives one hope here for what might be accomplished. So, next steps, Kerry Leigh. Is it just the same? Just keep the pressure on and ratchet it up. I mean, you have basically a week to get this done.
Yes, and a lot can happen in a week. So we would really encourage people to tune in on Tuesday to the public meeting.
Yeah, and if you are so moved to be part of the rally, you could be part of that on Thursday as well. Jen, what do you see as the work for Sinnissippi right now?
I'm definitely going to continue to reach out to legislators and other groups. There will be additional events on the weekend, Saturday the 30th. So additional time to meet with people as a group and meet some of these people that you've been doing advocacy work with, and more will be out about that early next week as well.
And if you don't, we're going to sick that bear on you that is behind
Right.
you. I mean, I had to call attention to the bear. If you're listening on the podcast, you don't get to see the bear that has a sign that says "Save Bell Bowl Prairie," and that's it's not quite life size, but it's substantial behind Jen Kuroda. I like it. We all like it. Folks, thank you so much for doing this again. My sincerest apologies for technical problems at the very, very beginning of the show, but I think we've accomplished what we hoped to accomplish today. Is there anything anybody wants to add before I let you all go?
I would like to say something that I neglected to mention. So the catchment basin, the stormwater basin, would be replaced by a innovative porous paving and alternative stormwater system for the area where the planes are serviced.
That's a really good point. I mean, if their concern is the storage of storm water, porous paving is something that I think more people consider. Peggy and I talked about an initiative that we wanted to start in Chicago, which is called Unpave 50%. The idea being take 50% of our impermeable pavement in the city and make it permeable somehow. I don't know how that happens, but it is something that occurred to us because we're going to have less flooding if that happens. Domenico, you're...
Also, I think this is one area where they might object, but this is already being done in the Netherlands and other places, and there is a guide available on how to do porous paving for airports.
All right. Kerry Leigh, Domenico D'Alessandro, Jen Kuroda, thank you so much for being here. I can see our next guest, Kim Hankins. Kim, as you probably noticed, she's waiting in the wings. We're running a little late here, but we're going to be to you just after this spot. Thank you all for being here this morning. We're going to be talking again. Obviously, this is not done, and I'm hoping when the next time we talk, it's to pop a
share
cork.
Good news.
Yeah, share good news would be a good thing. Pop a cork and say, "Wow, dodge that bullet again," and then get to work on the next issue that needs our attention. It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Mulecki. We hope you stick around. There's much more to come.
Hey, good afternoon, Dr. Drew. How are you?
Good, Vic. How are you doing today?
Pretty good, pretty good. You know, I was just walking through the woods and I saw this burl up here, and it just got me to thinking I don't really know what these are exactly and why they happen. So can you tell me anything about tree burls?
Yeah, so tree burls are just sort of a lump of abnormal growth that occur on the trunks of trees. And it is really just a form of hyperplasia, which is just unchecked cellular division and growth. And in a lot of ways, it's sort of analogous to a tumor.
Oh, okay. Tumor, I understand. You kind of lost me at hyperplasia. But what is the cause of the formation of these burls?
Well, there's several different things that could cause them. In some cases, like a tumor, they're just a genetic mutation or abnormality. In other cases, they're caused by pathogens like bacteria, fungi, viruses, or even maybe an insect pest.
So are these burls harmful for the trees?
Well, from a health perspective, not usually. It really depends on the size and how much of the trunk is involved because there is functional vasculature in there.
And what about from a structural standpoint?
Well, that's a tricky question and really needs to be inspected on a case-by-case basis. So if there is a burl on a tree trunk, then it really needs to be inspected by an arborist to make that determination.
Okay, so what's the biggest tree burl you've ever seen?
Well, in the coast redwood forest, especially the old growth, they get pretty big, and I've seen one the size of my Subaru Outback before.
Wow, that's fantastic. That must be a sight to see. Drew, I want to thank you for your time and your expertise. And as always, thanks for being a resource for our arborists here at Bartlett Tree Experts.
My pleasure. Call back anytime.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash?
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabagas. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Thank you, Kim Hankins, for your patience. I don't know if you saw at the beginning of the show. It was we had one of those little technical issues, and things just disappeared on us for a second. But we are so pleased to have Kim Hankins. She's the Director of Sustainability for McHenry County College. And as I often say about the folks in McHenry, there's something in the water because you guys get it. And I hope it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing in the water. And because this year, the annual, which was not annual last year, because of a certain, I don't know, there was a pandemic or something.
Longer annual.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what happened there, but the green living. All right, and now that word Expo. I was going to say festival, but it is a festival. The Expo, and I only we only go to it every year when we can, and but it's back, and that's the good news. The Green Living Expo is back, and you guys were going to do it live this year, and I know, Kim, you were all excited. This is great. We're back in the saddle here, but the Delta variant had other ideas, didn't it?
Indeed, it sure did.
Oh, but that's okay. The fact that you guys still pulled it together, and you've got a terrific event lined up. So tell us a little bit about what's going to happen on the 6th of November.
Right around the corner. Well, first of all, thank you, Peggy and Mike, for having me again. I love talking to you guys, and I love being part of the show, and I really appreciate all the wonderful things you have to say about the Green Living Expo. And I'm sorry that we can't hang out in person this year, but we decided to go. We've actually nicknamed it the Greener Living Expo because there is no carbon or very small carbon footprint with not zillions of cars coming to the college. So there's some advantages. We have cut down on our carbon footprint. Also, it's really been nice because we've been able to open it up to folks all over the place that wouldn't normally be able to come to McHenry County or not really even know where McHenry County is. So it's nice to be able to open it up to a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily be able to join us otherwise. So it's been good.
Yeah, I want to call attention to a few things. It's free, of course, which is
absolutely
a great thing. Folks are strongly encouraged to register before the day of the event. Although, as you pointed out, if you wanted to go on 2 minutes before you could probably do it 2 minutes before you went there. But folks, excuse me, folks, we want to know how many people are going to be there. But the other thing is the first 200 people to register will receive a free reusable veggie produce bag made from recycled materials. Yeah, that's cool. So can people register now?
Absolutely. So it's really, we have this wonderful platform that we're working with this year called Whova, and the college has worked with it a couple of times and had some really good success with it. So we really like it a lot, which is great. And it's very easy. You just go to the college or Sustainability Center website, which I know we'll say this a zillion times, but it's just mchenry.edu/green. And right there at the front of the sustainability website is a little button. You click on it and you just register. It's free. It's very easy. The nice thing about registering a little early is you can get in a little early. So we will be opening it up a couple days early so people can get in and look at the agenda and the speakers and see who the exhibits are and plan their day. So if you don't necessarily care about the first speaker, you can come back a little bit later. Or if you want to check in with somebody, you'll just know what's going on. So it helps us, again, it's totally fine if you wait till the morning of and register. It works however you want to do it. Which is why we will give a little bit of wiggle time right at 10 o'clock. So for those people that aren't maybe just joining us at the last minute, that's fine. But yeah, it's a nice platform. Like I said, it's pretty easy to use. It's pretty intuitive. So we've been really happy with it so far. It's given us a lot of flexibility.
And you can,
right now we have...
And people can be interactive on there too. You're not just sitting and watching. You can go and talk to vendors and leave comments.
Yeah, every vendor has their own chat room, which we'll be monitoring all day long. We'll be helping the vendors because we don't expect them to sit there, entire time, but we'll be helping them throughout the day. But all the vendors have their own chat room, and then all the speakers will be having some live, some pre-recorded, just depends on what's going on. We have a soil guy, which I heard you talking earlier about soil webs, Mike, and it got me thinking about, we have a soil guy coming. He's doing 2 soil borings this week up at McHenry County College in some new areas of the college that are slated for development of our student farm. So he's going to go up and do 2 soil borings, and we're going to record that. And then he's going to be live with us, kind of telling us what he found. And
that's cool. Great. Yeah. Now, folks would love that for the yard. And the idea is, and I assume he's not boring himself, but he's going to be taking
Hope not.
the borings. Thank you very much. Would you like that? Okay, there we go. Everybody needs their own rim shot when we're having a conversation. But several things. First of all, as you mentioned, the expo goes live on Saturday, November 6th at 10 a.m. It goes to 5 p.m. And the point of chat room is when people go to these events, they want to ask questions. They want to see demonstrations, but they also want to know how this applies to them. And if they have, questions about what to do, which is the great thing about a chat. But wait, there's more. As you told me the other day, there's going to be coupons and giveaways from vendors. Now, how do folks find out about that?
So when you register, when it opens up and you can get on and see all the different exhibitors and vendors, each one of them will have a little square. We're pretty familiar with those kind of little things you click on. We'll have an exhibitor tab on the side, and you just click on that and all the exhibitors come up. They will be listed alphabetically. Of course, our sponsors will be first, but then they'll be listed alphabetically, and you just click on it. But they'll have in that little square, there'll be a little description if they're offering a coupon or a giveaway or a sign up for this. One of our vendors is the Eco Illini Super Mileage Team. I don't know if you guys remember those from previous. They're a bunch of students from the University of Illinois that built the
love those guys
solar race car.
And gals. They're wonderful.
They're so fun, and they're raffling off a visit to their lab, which is like, I've already entered. That's really cool. So that would be really fun. Yeah. I don't think I'm eligible to win, but that's okay.
I wanted to get strapped into one of those cars just so I could get a photo of that. But
Facebook Live, yeah.
Yeah. But by the way, all the links are available at MikeNowak.net. Of course, as we said, you can go to McHenry.edu/green or Green Expo. And
either one works. Yep.
Yeah, either one of those works. All right, let's get down to the meat of the Expo. You have 4 tracks this year, 4 unique tracks. One is renewable energy, then there's waste reduction, food and farming, and fun and recreation. Do you want to go through some of what's in each? Like, for instance, in the renewable energy, what are folks going to see?
Well, we're actually kicking off the day with our first speaker. Is going to be talking about solar battery storage and electric car charging stations for the homeowner. We kind of based our 4 tracks on the bazillions of questions that we get at the Sustainability Center and A quick shout out to my amazing team, which I'll tell you about a little bit later. And all those guys, we kind of put our heads together and said, what are people asking us? What do they want to know that we can't necessarily answer? And we need to find somebody else that can answer that. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that certainly came up was electric car charging stations. I want to buy an electric car, but do I have to have one at my house? And then what happens and where do I go? And so that we're going to kick off the day with that. We do have a couple of vendors. One of our sponsors, Magitech Energy Solutions, will be there in the vendor hall, answer questions, just, kind of be available to talk about all the opportunities and kind of what's out there. There's a lot of good stuff coming down the pike with our new energy legislation. So there's a lot of good stuff to find out about with that. Yeah, the renewable energy one, then, and also the environmental defenders, which I know you guys know, the environmental defenders in McHenry County have a action team that's been working really hard on some community solar efforts and some pollinator at solar farms efforts. So they'll be in the exhibit hall to talk about that too.
And I see that you're going to have a tour, and if you, it'll be a virtual tour, obviously, of the McHenry County College student farms and high tunnels. It's next year when it's all live, you got to go because you have to go take a tour of those tunnels. They're really, really cool. And they were still
we took the greenhouse tour the last time.
Right, we took the greenhouse when some of the tunnels were still under construction 2 years ago when the last time Peggy and I were there live.
Yeah, those tunnels have it's amazing, that program. The college started the Center for Agrarian Learning, and that was reaching out to working with local agriculture experts. And now we've been working with the entrepreneurial agriculture program, which is the credit side. And one of our team on the Expo is Emily Zach. She's the head of that. So that's been a lot of fun to work with Emily and Sherry on those tours. And Emily's going to give us a live tour of what's going on. She was just talking to her on Friday. They're putting a lot of stuff to bed. It was going to get below freezing on Friday night. So they were kind of putting a lot of protection up there and making sure all the air was moving around and keep that growing season going as long as possible. And we had a really cool, speaking of renewable energy, we had a really cool project we did earlier this summer where we put one small little 4-panel solar array out by the high tunnels. And now that solar array powers one of the high tunnels. So it's a nice demonstration project for people that might want to be able to reproduce that on their own farms.
I notice also that culinary activities are part of the Expo. Preserving fresh food by freezing. I love this second part of this. What works and what doesn't? Well, if you die because you did it wrong, that didn't work. Is that kind of an example of that?
Well, I'm not sure we'll be. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I'm not sure that'll be one of the highlights.
I'm sorry. I mean, it's just looking at me. You got to realize who you're dealing with here, okay?
This is true. Yeah. I will mention that to Chef Tina, though, to make sure she covers the part about possible death. So we'll make sure we get to that part. But yeah, those two instructors. Chef Tina is the head of the culinary department, and that program is just really amazing, and they've done a lot of good stuff. And so she's going to be live in her classroom, which is the culinary lab, and doing the freezing demonstration. And then we're also going to have a video in their booth, in the culinary booth, about deboning a chicken, which we decided not to do live because it's Sunday morning and might be too much for people. But we decided to go ahead and do the freezing one. Which, sorry, go ahead.
I have to make, but it's Saturday morning.
I'm sorry. You're right. I've got my day. Oh, that's terrible of me. Oh my God. Yes, it is Saturday morning.
No, I thought I had made the mistake.
No, it's Sunday morning.
Yeah, no. See, this is Sunday, and that's where we're confusing you because we're previewing this. And again, it's Saturday morning, November 6th.
November 6th.
Right, yes. From 10 to 5. It goes to 5 p.m. So, I'm kind of curious about why you added the recreation part of it. So I think it's great, but that's very interesting. How does that fit into your Green Expo?
Well, as you mentioned, Mike, we have a really robust, educated, and active environmental community here in McHenry County. And there's so many cool things to do up here and see and notice and understand. And we wanted to highlight some of the cool stuff that we have up here. So we reached out to the Conservation District for one. So the McHenry County Conservation District Police are going to be giving a little presentation on winter recreation, because we don't want to go inside right away. We want to get outside and enjoy some of the winter recreation stuff that's available to us. And they have just a ton of stuff, candlelight, cross-country skiing and snowshoeing. And we have a really robust hunting community up here. And not everybody, I get it, that's not for everybody. But there are some really important things to know about that, if that's your thing. So they'll be talking about that too.
Well, what's interesting about McHenry County, and I've talked to folks about this over the years, and obviously it continues to change and evolve, but McHenry is one of those counties that's kind of half urban, half rural now. Cook County, well, that rural part disappeared long ago, but up in McHenry, there's still opportunity for a lot of outdoor activities that you don't see in some of the other collar counties.
It's really true. And there's some really rare ecosystems up here too. I was really interested listening to the prairie discussion before this, and, fingers crossed and toes and everything that really works out okay. We had a similar prairie issue many, many years ago, and it didn't really work out the way we had hoped it would. So I understand those pressures. But yeah, there's so many rare ecosystems and just really cool stuff to see up here that you wouldn't necessarily find in a collar county of a big city. So it's fun to have it right in our backyard.
I notice also there's and I'm just kind of going down the list here of the various seminars you're going to have. Believe me, there's something pretty much for everybody.
Yeah. And you don't have to be there for the whole thing. You can come and go too.
Right.
Based
You
on
can
schedule.
pop in and out. Judy Spears is going to be talking about permaculture food forest, the way to eat from your landscape. Now, this is not about foraging, I take it, or is it?
Not really. It's a permaculture concept. I think one of your big supporters, Karen Wenzel from Blazing Star, has really brought me into the permaculture fold and taught me a lot about it. It's such an interesting area of study that I think a lot of people just don't really know much about. So we asked Judy to kind of talk about this one little aspect of how really being able to make your backyard something productive and really it's pretty impressive. I'm really intrigued by what she has to say. I've heard her speak a little bit, and I think it'll be really interesting for folks that have not had any exposure to the permaculture concepts.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned our wonderful sponsor, Blazing Star, and you go to blazing-star.com, and they're all about improving your soil and making it healthier and able to sustain more life of all kinds.
And the Expo is actually where we first met them.
Oh, that's true.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
cool.
that's absolutely true. Yeah, that's one of the reasons I always enjoyed going up to the Expo is that we run into Karen and Stephen. So they're great people. And
Karen's
what
been
other?
part of our, I was just going to say, Karen's been part of our steering committee for the Expo since the very beginning. So couldn't do it without her and all the rest of my crew. They're amazing.
And last but not least, and this appeals to people in the city, in the suburbs, in urban, or rather rural areas. Jen Murtoff, who was on our show not too long ago, when we promoted the chicken coop tour in Chicago. Home to Roost, Chickens 101. Where do I start? And that's always a really big question. I think a lot of folks will say, and I'm one of them. Oh, I could never do this. I wouldn't even know where and how to get started. And this is what Jen's going to do in her session.
Well, it's so fun because Jen found us, the Expo, through your show. So she was the one who called me up and said, I just heard about
what can I tell
Expo
you?
and I want to be part of it. So thanks.
No,
that was really nice. Nice connection. And I'm really impressed with all the things that she's got a lot of classes and a lot of really cool education stuff. So I'm hoping we can connect her with, the thing we always talk about with chickens is it just depends on your municipality. There's some, cities and towns that are like, absolutely not. And others are like, sure, come on. So you just have to find that out first. So
yeah.
I'm looking forward to meeting her.
We've got a comment from Cindy who says, thanks for the shout out for our Defenders of Water and Natural Resources Protection Action Team, Kim. We're excited to talk to folks about solar farms planted with prairie.
And of course, Greg is making a
Audrey.
Was it? Well, I've got one from Greg.
Yeah.
Stargazing is pretty good in McHenry County.
Yeah, that's Audrey.
How do you know?
Audrey Fisher?
I know. It says Greg. It's Greg Fisher.
Okay. She uses his account usually.
So you have the inside scoop there. Okay.
Somebody in that household is watching and commenting.
Right, and they know that there's still stars in the sky when you go to McHenry County, which is one of the great reasons to go up and visit the folks in McHenry County. So that's a lot for people to enjoy in the Green Living Expo. And again, it is the 6th of November. That's a Saturday, just to make sure. Saturday. And go online. You can go to my website, MikeNowak.net, to sign up. You can also go to mchenry.edu/green or mchenry.edu/green expo. Is there anything we've missed here, Kim, in promoting this?
I think you've hit a lot of it. I think our waste minimization track doesn't have a specific speaker dedicated to it, but we've got a lot of really good exhibitors. Goodwill and Habitat for Humanity have joined us again, and they're, we don't think about them as being specifically waste minimization, but they just keep so much stuff out of the landfill. It's just amazing. And you look at their statistics and all the things they do. It's really, I'm so happy that they can join us this year and have a booth and talk a little bit about what they're doing. And then the Defenders, again, I keep going back to them. They have a waste minimization recycling committee. They're going to be talking about their styrofoam collection, and they'll have a little bit more information on collecting styrofoam to recycle. So that's a good one too.
Right there. People like me, and I know there are other folks like me out there who have styrofoam, which is expanded polystyrene. And that's the styrofoam is actually a brand name. But expanded polystyrene, a lot of us, we don't know what to do with it. It sits in the basement. It sits in the garage until we can find a way to, because I know it's possible to recycle it, and Dart Corporation does that, but it's hard to get to those locations. And if you're driving expanded polystyrene to a facility that can recycle it, what's the net energy consumption there? That's part of the problem with the problem also being that expanded polystyrene stays forever in a landfill. It's going to take thousands of years to break down. So, and when you talk about Goodwill, I'm absolutely on board with what they do. Anything that keeps us from just dumping stuff in our landfills. So when you're promoting their operation, you're promoting reuse, which is a huge part of what we need to do. We need to rethink everything. We need to reduce and reuse, really refuse a lot of stuff. But so I'm glad you have this part of the track at the Expo as well.
Yeah, it should be great. I'm really happy that we were able to put these tracks together. We kind of came up with this last year when we were sort of trying to figure out what are we going to do for Expo. And then, of course, everything went crazy, so we decided not to. But we picked up the tracks again. And, I think we'll probably stick with this idea. I like the idea of how to kind of organize it. So people that are coming to the Expo, well, I just really want to know about renewable energy. They can just click on their renewable energy track and they'll see all the vendors and the speakers, and that they can just do that. But of course, we'd like them to do everything, but not everybody has that much time. So we get it. And I like the idea of organizing it down these tracks. And so next year, maybe we'll have some different ones.
And we like the idea of having you on the show because you're such an enthusiast for this. I love the work you're doing, and I love the work that at McHenry County College. So congratulations. And all right, everybody, now's your turn. You got to sign up. Be part of this. Just stop in. See, you want to see one seminar? It's free. And you might get a goodie. If you sign up early, you're definitely going to get a goodie. And you might get some coupons for stuff you can use in the future. So Kim Hankins from McHenry County College, the Sustainability Director, thank you so much, as always, for being part of this and supporting our show. We love supporting you.
Well, thank you, guys. It's always nice to have you and be part of your show, and I'm excited to have the Expo, and you guys have booths too, so everybody can come and visit with you on a Saturday morning as well.
Yeah. And we definitely love the very tasteful wall that you have behind you with the very tasteful art.
We call this my dining office. It's the dining room and the office mushed together. So it's the dining office.
Gosh, that doesn't happen to anybody else. I
No,
don't,
hardly ever.
yeah. You don't even know what's behind me because I got banners here so I can cover up everything.
But I know what's behind those banners.
Yes, you do, and it's not hasn't been painted in years. So, okay, Kim Hankins, we'll talk to you very soon. Guess who's
Thanks again,
coming?
you guys.
Yeah, there's rain on the way, folks. Lots of it. Unfortunately, Rick DiMaio is next to explain that. We'll talk to him. You have the ability to give your soil a superpower. It's called composting. If you don't have a backyard, you need to contact Collective Resource Compost. CRC has diverted 7,000 tons of food scraps since 2010. They bring you a fresh 5-gallon bucket or a 32-gallon neighbor tote with each pickup. You fill it with organic matter from your kitchen, they swap it out and get it to a commercial composting operation. Fight climate change. Go to collectiveresource.us.
Life is an ocean, streaming alone, ripples of motion, hitting us all, yeah.
Dive in, your time to win, our hearts all in, let's let the fun begin. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. Climbing high, I see you diving. Take a dive, take a dive, take a dive. I see you diving high, I see you climbing high, I see you diving. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive in. Dive smart, dive smart, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard, dive hard.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. There he is, meteorologist Rick DiMaio. And Rick, it is a dark and gloomy day, and we've got some stuff on the way here, don't we?
Yeah, and it's actually not related to the stuff that's going on in California, Oregon, and Washington, where there's near record low pressure off the coast of Seattle down to 949 millibars, which is like a Category 3 hurricane.
Wow.
But when you get big storms out west, it tends to energize the jet stream here in the Midwest, and that's exactly what's happening today.
Wow, I read something last night before I nodded off about the river of vapor coming in.
The atmospheric river.
What did they call it?
The atmospheric river, yeah.
Atmospheric river coming into California. It's just going to, and it had something 2 or 3 times the flow of the Mississippi River in terms of water content. Wow. And it's just going to slam. Now, see, that's what's so fascinating is that we go through these periods of drought, and now suddenly California, and we'll see maps in a second. If you folks got to stick around for this, this is just amazing stuff. And then suddenly California is going to get slammed with moisture.
Yeah, moisture in the form of rain below 7,000 feet and snow above 7,000 feet. So they'll get their fair share of precipitation in both forms, which you normally get in the middle of October. If it was a month from now, snow level will probably be down to maybe 6,000 feet. If it was December or January, probably down about 5,000 feet. But what people have to remember is whenever you have a flow of moisture off the Pacific Ocean, you never really get the freezing level down below 4,000 feet because the ocean temperature stays pretty much the same all year round, generally in the low to mid 50s. So there's no cold air on the backside of these systems. Most of the snow is due to enhanced orographics, incredible lifting of the air. Atmospheric pressure always lowers as you go higher up. Water vapor cools off much more rapidly. So you never really get a snow level down below 5,000. But this is going to be both beneficial and destructive. So let me explain that. The beneficial is it's going to bring an end to the wildfire season across all of the state, Oregon, Idaho, most likely the interior section of Montana, maybe not eastern Montana, and the northern half of California, pretty much from about San Francisco northward. That's the beneficial part. The other beneficial part is that it's going to, basically fill up the reservoirs to about maybe 30 to 40% of where they are right now. So if we're in, say, if you think about a drought as in 5 steps, this will bring us probably up to about step 3 away from a drought. It's not going to end the drought, but it'll end the wildfire season, which is a shorter climactic event. Drought is a much longer climactic event. So you have to think about it from that standpoint. The third part, which is the destructive part, is all the areas that had massive burnings. And we've had record burn season across Northern California, not so much south, is you're going to have mudslides, mud flows, and then landslides. So the mudslide first is at the side of the hill, have the ability to hold on to any roots or of trees or bushes. So that goes. And then you'll have a mudslide, which is basically a much larger area of mud that just basically flows down the side of a mountain. And if you reduce the bottom part of a mountain even higher, or I should say even greater, then you'll get a landslide. And that's what in Oso, Washington. So Oso is spelled O-S-O. And that was, I believe, back in 2013, when a completely large side of a mountain basically collapsed and slid into a town and killed over 30 people. And those people were actually warned that it could happen. So again, it's going to occur in some areas. You're probably going to hear about, loss of life, which should never happen because the watches and the warnings are out there. But you'll still have people driving and make it across the river. And we all know that water is a pretty powerful thing once it gets going. So that's pretty much what we have going on there today, tomorrow, and probably Tuesday as well.
Why don't we take since we started there, take a look at some of these maps. And here's the heavy rain map, 2-day rainfall forecast for California.
Yeah, and what's really amazing is, we see this so often, and it usually occurs at the end of the summer. And part of this, I think, is because the North Pacific is 3 to 4 degrees above normal temperature-wise. I didn't send that to you. I did send a lot of maps, but I actually didn't send as many as I would have liked. So the flow of moisture is actually not coming from Hawaii as it would normally do when you get these incredible flows of moisture. This is actually coming from the North Pacific. And the fact that it's producing this much water vapor and this much precipitation is due to the fact that the water temperatures are about 3 to 4 degrees above normal. So if people are thinking, is this somewhat related to a warmer climate? The answer is yes. Are the dynamics related to a warmer climate? No, I don't think so. You'll get these every once in a while. Someone said, is this, one of those remnant, typhoons that you normally see come out of the West Pacific and move across the North Pacific? No, it was not. So the fact that this isn't actually part of an old typhoon is kind of scary. So this is just the normal storm that's a little bit more energized due to the warmer than normal water. And I think people can see that these numbers are anywhere between 3 and 5 inches along the coast, a little bit less in the valleys. And then once you get into Sierra Nevada mountains, you're up close to 10 inches. So this is just rain. And if you got it, a lot of rivers can't handle that much rain in 36 to 48 hours. And certainly the areas that were so devastated by the fires that have literally left holding back the soil is really what they're concerned about. And that actually happens to be the epicenter of where the heavy rain is. So again, beneficial from one standpoint, ends the fire season, beneficial for another where it helps out with the restoration of the reservoirs, but catastrophic from a standpoint of landslides. So the map that you first showed there is the public forecast. This is the one that you actually use as a meteorologist. This is from one of the models. This basically just shows you what the derived precipitation is from the global forecast system, otherwise known as the GFS, for a period of about 48 hours. And you can see it's basically lining up right along the east-facing part of the Sierra Nevada mountains and also the coastal range. So you have two mountain ranges in California. The coastal, which runs from basically San Francisco northward to about the California border, and then you have the Sierras. Once you get on the other side of the Sierras in southern Nevada, it dries out because the mountains are 14,000 feet. That's one of the reasons why Nevada is so dry, and also the valleys, southeast California, are bone dry. So again, you get these massive swings of weather due to the fact that you have the largest ocean in the world and one of the largest changes in elevation anywhere in North America. And unfortunately, 40 million people tend to live in that area. That's not good.
Yeah. And and this is the snow that we're looking at.
Yeah, it may be hard to see, but that number just to the south of where Lake Tahoe is, that's the area where Nevada goes like this and like that. That's 63 inches. You divide that by 12, wow. That's 5 feet of snow. Yeah, feet of snow. Now, I've seen some of these models over forecast.
How much time?
There's about 36 hours, Peg.
Okay.
So yeah, the thing about it is there's some great webcams. You can go to windy.com and click on the camera icon and go into those areas, and you'll see the snow probably accumulate up to about maybe late this afternoon, and then you won't see anything because the cameras will get covered with snow. So it's kind of funny. Either the cameras get covered or the snow goes over the camera. But I think most of the cameras are above 10 feet. But whenever you get this wet snow, which is typically what happens this time of the year, the cameras get covered with snow. So this is going to do two things. It's going to also help out with the promotion of the season out there, which they didn't have one last year until midway through the season. But again, this type of event is not atypical time of the year. But the fact that the atmospheric river, that's the term we now give these long stretches of water vapor and moisture, is so, I think, predominantly strong, is due to the fact that the water temperature is about 3 to 4 degrees warmer than it should be this time of year.
So what was it you were saying that they were going to get this year that they didn't have before? Was it skiing were you talking about?
Yeah, well, their ski season started so late last year, and then it ended kind of like with a whimper. It just went away really fast, but they didn't really get their big snow until much, much later. Remember, we had a really warm November, December, and that was partly due to the fact that the jet was literally up over the top of. So this was just from yesterday, and it showed that the snow was covering the ground in many locations. So they already had some snow from 2 days ago. It was up at about 1,000 feet. Also see that this is the area. This is one of the ski areas down around Lake Tahoe. They've already had snow. But again, all of these areas will have about 3 to 4 feet of snow on top of what they have right now. The good news is the ground is as we always talk about this time of the year, is warm. So any snow that does occur will most likely melt and percolate down into the soil. So this is going to be really, really beneficial as you head into the winter season. Hopefully, if they get enough of this, it'll stave off at least an extension of the drought that they're in. So again, drought is really, really a long-term thing. Flooding rains, landslides, things like that is really much more short-term. So again, all it's going to do is it's going to take the drought like this and basically go to like that. That's all it does.
Okay, and here's something you sent that I thought was pretty fascinating, and that is the cloud cover that indicates La Nina.
Yeah, or actually lack of clouds. So
Right.
if you look at the area along the equator, and if you basically go from the date line, which is the line of longitude, that's second one from the left, if you can follow that. First off, you can actually see the first, pocket of moisture line there. But if you go to the equator and you kind of run your finger all the way over, you can find America. That area, which is about 6,000 miles long from the equator over to South America, there's no cloud. And that typically is covered by clouds due to the Intertropical Convergence Zone, otherwise known as the ITCZ. So what we can see here is two things. There's a lot of cumulus clouds, those dots, those little white dots, but there's also a lack of the real tall cloud, which is the ones that have the red and the brown on it. The red and the brown are the ones that are really tall. That's indicative of the fact that the water is warm and it's releasing heat energy up through 40, 50,000 feet. In the air, no clouds, it's indicative of the fact that the water is cool and almost 3 to 4 degrees cooler than normal, and that's La Nina. So what we do is we not only use buoys that measure the water temperature, but also the satellite to actually compensate for the areas where we don't have surface observations. And this is indicative of the fact that La Nina is pretty darn strong. Now, whether or not that's going to have a direct impact on our weather here is still somewhat debatable, because one thing doesn't always, impact the weather here in the Midwest. It's usually a couple of things. You got to look at the pattern across the North Atlantic, pattern across the North Atlantic. But what La Nina ends up doing is it allows the jet stream across the southern or the jet stream coming into the Pacific Northwest to be a little bit stronger and to have a little bit more southward extension, because it doesn't have to worry about a warm push of air northward if there was an El Nino. So an El Nino basically takes the atmosphere and pushes it up. And as it pushes it up, it actually strengthens the subtropical jet on this side right here. All right. When you have La Nina, you don't have the air pushing up. So the jet stream can actually move a little bit further south. And that's one of the reasons why we think that this winter will most likely have more active storms coming in from the Pacific Northwest and from Canada. So someone says, well, is this storm a precursor of one? I think it's got a little bit, only because it's in from that position where La Nina jets generally tend to strengthen. But this isn't really a La Nina enhanced storm. This storm that's developed off the coast of the Pacific, in between the date line, mainly due to the warmer waters of the Pacific. So we'll see how that bears out. Usually you don't really understand what the pattern is going to be like until about maybe the second or third week of November. So I think it's a little bit early. So I like to think of October as almost like April. You can't really make a summer prediction off the second or third week of April. You can do it off the second or third week of May, but not the second week of April.
All right. Well, that's it. Let's look at this. I have a series of maps here, and I hear myself coming back, but that'll probably resolve itself here. Okay. This is not really related to La Nina, as you say, but it is. If you look at the Pacific Northwest and Northern California, lots of rain. You look at the Midwest, lots of rain.
Yeah, and again, the Sunday map here is not an analysis; it's a prediction, but nonetheless, it's pretty close to what's happening. So I was just looking while I was listening to Kim talk, and it'll be interesting to see how this system bears out by the middle of the week, because the system that's over us is kind of being energized from a dynamic standpoint by the system off the West Coast. And it's kind of hard to see, but the millibars of this looks like it's down to about 964. But the current analysis shows a 945 millibar low off the coast. So that's the wind and the rain. And last I checked, they had wind gusts to about 45 to 50 miles per hour in San Francisco at the airport, which means that the coast are probably blowing about 60 or 65 miles an hour. That's a lot of rain. I don't know if they're playing football there, but we'll see what happens if they are. But notice the amount of green on that map. There's not a lot of purple. Purple indicates snow, which indicates the snow level is really, really high. So again, this is a warm storm, a lot of liquid with this thing. The one that's coming through us is the one that's going to produce quite a bit of rain. A couple of droplets out there right now. I was just taking a for a walk, and this system has pulled up quite a bit of moisture in the last 24 hours, but it's going to move kind of slowly. So it's going to pull up even more moisture. So if you want to go to the next map, this is the map for 7 p.m. tonight. And now you can see that low off the coast of Washington. It has a 952. That's a really, really deep low. And it doesn't take much to produce heavy rain in the Pacific Northwest because the orographics, lift the air so much. But if you notice the way this storm through the Midwest is moving, it's a nice, comma-shaped cloud. The amount of moisture that's going to be pulled across the warm front is literally going to be maximized right across central areas of Illinois. So this is valid for 7 p.m. tonight. If you want to go to the next one, you'll see when this storm system comes through, it doesn't move very fast. So between this morning and tomorrow, it literally goes from northern Missouri into Indiana. And by this time, most of the lakefront will be in sustained 30 to 35-hour winds. And that usually means wind gusts to maybe 40, maybe 45 miles per hour. I don't think we're going to get much higher than that, but it's going to be a steady onshore flow. So again, two things come out of this. Very beneficial. We've had some really decent rain so far this month, anywhere between 2.5 and 3 inches in some areas. And if you remember, we were really dry heading into the month of June, and then all of a sudden we had 6 inches of rain in the month of June, and then we went dry again for July, August, and September. And now we'll probably end up with about 6 inches of rain in the month of October and probably have one of the wettest Octobers on record. The good news is that the lake level is down about 18 inches from where it was last year. The bad news is you're going to get still very, very strong east-northeast flow. And because it's going to be pounding the shoreline for such a long period of time, there's going to be a lot of beach erosion. But again, not as much as what we had last year. So again, if you go to the next chart,
I thought I'd pop this up since you were talking about that, some of the wave height.
Oh, and I'm looking at the Wilmette buoy right now, and that's already at 5.6 feet, but the water temperature is still over 61. Is that going to affect it at all?
Yeah, it's amazing, Peg. The we had 3 days this week we're in the 70s, and I rode my bike 2 of those days, and on Monday and Tuesday there were people swimming in Lake Michigan, and I've never seen that before. Yeah, actually, I think it was 63. And this Maddie was probably like 70 years old. He goes, I'm taking advantage of the 60-degree lake one. I'm like, it's actually 63. He goes, yeah, it did feel like more like 63. So it's amazing. This time of year, you can almost tell what it was, and that's because he knew it was 66 last week. I mean, if you're swimming in it enough, you kind of get to know these different temperature. But yeah, the fact that the Wilmette buoy is already showing feet. It's probably heading towards 10 to 12. And this is a map for 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So October 25th, 1800 GMT. You subtract 5 hours from 1800 and you get 1 o'clock. And it shows you how when you get that northeast wind, how the western side of Lake Michigan will feel the stronger winds with these storms. The eastern side of Lake Michigan feels it when the storm goes through from, when the wind comes around. But typically, when you have storms moving through very slowly is when you have the beach erosion. So I can even send you a link to that. I'll probably get information. So we just showed is something that's generated from the forecast models, and this is obviously that is generated by the National Weather Service. So again, east-northeast winds is the worst type of wind for pushing water over the beachfront. And then when we're northeast, that begins to take the water down along the beach, and that's when you have beach erosion. So you have flooding impact. You have the water going over the sand, and then you have the water going parallel to the sand, and that'll actually tend to pull it down shore. So that's one of the reasons why Gilson Beach is impacted so much, because of the way it kind of curves around the Baha'i Temple there. So you get massive amounts of beach erosion at Wilmette and Gilson. And then Lee Street Beach will get some beach erosion as well. But generally, the Chicago beaches won't get as much beach erosion. Those beaches are a little bit wider, and their break walls tend to go a little bit further out. So it really all depends on how the water is focused and how much beach erosion you're going to get. Nonetheless, you'll probably see some people trying to jog and ride their bikes along the bike path tomorrow morning at Oak Street Beach, and I'm sure there's going to be pounding waves, and there are going to be people going, "I can't believe they're doing that." But it always seems it doesn't surprise me what people generally tend to do when they're not supposed to do it.
So if we go back to the forecast map, you can see that by Tuesday we have a respite for at least one day, right?
Yeah, one day. This thing moves off to the east, and it'll probably end the fall colors in New England. So two things end fall colors. The length of season just basically ends, or you have a really windy storm. So anytime you have a lot of wind, that's going to take a lot of leaves off the trees. It'll be interesting to see how much of the wind takes these leaves off these trees, because they're still looking kind of tired. It doesn't look like it's going to be a nice fall foliage around here. Although yesterday I was driving around, there seemed to be some nice colors already coming out. But again, the storm system that's hitting the Pacific Northwest now by Tuesday is in the Rocky Mountains. And again, notice it's mainly green. That's a really, really warm storm that's moving through the mountains. And by the time it gets to us on Wednesday, you can go to the next map. By the time it gets here on Wednesday, we get right back in the southerly flow. This one now has a lot more in the way of deep moisture from the Gulf. So even though we're going to get about 2, maybe 3 inches of rain out of this first storm, this second one could probably deliver another 1 to 2 inches.
Yikes.
So Wednesday, and then the Thursday map, so go to the Thursday map now, you'll see that this thing literally occludes right over us. And the way we see that it's occluding is the low is way to the west, and the next low is taking place or forming over parts of North Carolina and South Carolina. Purple line there, the occluded front.
What do you mean by occlude, Rick? What is occlude?
An occluded low pressure system means that there's no definite of the difference between a warm and a cold air mass. So the word occlude has to do with your inability to see. I think it has to do something with the word relation or something like that. But you cannot observe any sort of difference of warm or cold air on a surface map. So what happens is the surface low is basically detached from the upper level winds. The upper level winds move to the east, and the system is then just kind of rotating around. So it could be, on this map, it could be degrees in Chicago and 60 degrees in Paducah, Kentucky, 60 in Indianapolis, and 60 in St. Louis. So the air just basically is flowing around. What it does, though, this is going to produce probably inches of rain. So even though we're under watches, I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to get some sort of a flooding rain scenario as we head into Thursday and Friday. And yeah, no, it's going to happen really quickly. But you know what? The ground is dry. The rivers are low. The lake levels are low. I don't see this as being anything that's going to produce any sort of damage across the area. And no, seriously, and the farmers have all, harvested their corn. So, I mean, after what has been a fantastic 6 weeks of, autumn weather, getting, significant amounts of rain, but because the ground is fairly dry and warm, I see this as being nothing but beneficial for us over 2 or 3 days.
Okay, well, I will tell you as we look at the next couple of days forecast for this immediate area that Pat Scatch, our friend in the meteorological world, sent me a text this morning. He said north central and central Illinois farmers are in serious trouble with today's very heavy rain. Harvest is not complete yet. Dry out, and the dry out time may be weeks for some to bring combines and trucks back in the field. So he's obviously getting some reports from his friends in central Illinois.
Yeah, that's good to know, and I'm glad Patrick is on top of that. I know that most of the farm fields I've seen, they're probably 75% done, but in certain areas, if they're not done, as Patrick alluded to, and I'll defer to someone with more information than me, and I appreciate that, Pat. If that's the case, then yeah, it looks will be kind of taking the week off, so to maybe getting that harvested on Tuesday. But I doubt it, because once you get that much rain on Sunday and Monday, it's hard to get out in the field on Tuesday and not get your equipment stuck. But again, the bottom line, guys, that we've seen this almost all spring and summer, where they don't need the rain in it and where we need the rain, we're not getting it. So again, less north, more south. And again, this is just 2 days. This is just today and tomorrow. There's another one rain on tap for Wednesday night and Friday. So I think the 7-day rainfall total is easily going to exceed basically a half a foot in some areas. Now, some areas, as you know, got frost. It wasn't a killing frost, but they got frost Thursday night into Friday. Remember, we predicted that last week. This is going to take frost off the table for the next 7 days. You don't get frost when you get rain. So if any plants they want to put back outside, this will
No.
Yeah.
Take them. This is what this is. This is a get out of jail free card, where if you didn't get, like me, I've still got plants out there. Now I know that if I'm not going to have frost for the next few days, I can get the rest of them inside. So it's a good time to do that while when there's moisture in the air. And we mentioned this on the show before. Our buddy Dan Costa from Verdant Growers Greenhouse said plants love the moisture, and at this time of year, usually you start to get everything dried out because you've got the heat on and so forth. With some more moisture in the air, you can bring them indoors and they won't suffer as much right away from the lack of humidity.
Yeah, I couldn't have said any better myself.
And Greg says he's thinking all this rain would be a good time to top dress the lawn.
Well, except here's all right. Top dress. All right. For one thing, it's a little late to be fertilizing if you were thinking about that. And even if you were, you got to be careful of that fertilizer running off. If we get excessive amounts, that'll end up in our sewers. Top dressing the lawn with compost might be good, but I'm afraid that's going to run off as well. Wow. So I would wait till things calm down if you're going to add some. Adding compost is always a good thing to your lawn. In fact, I need to get some information to a listener who said, "Where do I get sifted compost?" And I went, "Oh yeah, I got to." If anybody out there who's watching us knows where I can get sifted compost in this region, let me know. I know I'm supposed to know that, but I don't.
Yeah, and Dan Costa says, "Glad you approve, Rick."
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
I mean, that's like Robin agreeing to Batman, right? But the bottom line is, real quickly, our hurricane season, I think, is officially done. The water temperatures have cooled off quite a bit in the Atlantic. The Gulf of Mexico is done. The only area where you could see maybe an air and tropical storm is maybe the Straits of Yucatan. But even that, it may make it north and probably weaken a little bit. But the typhoon season is not yet over in the Pacific Ocean, and whether or not that still has an impact on our weather over the next 2 to 3 weeks, as it sometimes does in October, that remains to be seen. But next week when we talk again, it'll be how much rain we end up getting out of this. But it does look like we stay somewhat in a quieter pattern once we get past this week. This is not, I don't think this is a sign of things that come for the winter. It's a little bit too early for that.
Yeah. All right. So if anybody's been paying attention, they just saw the forecast, which is rain, and slightly, slightly above or normal temperatures, basically?
Well, that's kind of a tricky thing because overnight lows will probably remain above normal, only because we'll be in the upper 40s and near 50. Afternoon highs will probably be somewhat below normal. But most people, when it's 50 degrees and cloudy and rainy, consider it cold. And especially when you consider how nice it's been up until this point. We basically went from September to early November over the next couple of days. So I would say slightly below normal temperatures over the next 6 to 10 days. Yeah.
All right.
I know I've always said the second half of October can be very, very different from the first half of October. And that's definitely bearing it out again this year.
All right, Rick, thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm doing is spending this afternoon and tomorrow watching my basement to see what happens. I got it rotted a couple of weeks ago, so I'm assuming everything's going to be fine, but you never know. It's just...
Nope, you never know.
No.
The good thing, this is going to be over a long period of time. It's not like going to be like heavy-duty rain with thunderstorms, so maybe that'll help out.
I think it will. All right, I appreciate it. All right, buddy, we'll see you next week.
Sounds good. Take care, guys. Bye, Mike. Bye, Peg.
All righty. And I think that's it. So let's thank everybody on the show. Kerry Leigh, Domenico D'Alessandro, Jen Kuroda talking about Save Bell Bowl Prairie. You can find all those links at MikeNovak.net. We want to thank Kim Hankins, as Sustainability Director at McHenry County College. And don't forget to log on and go to the Green Living Expo on the 6th of November from 10 to 5. Thanks to Rick DiMaio, meteorologist, Kathleen upstairs, Lagata the cat, Basil the dog. I think that's about it, unless you got something else.
No, that's it.
All right, well, until next time, go green or...
Go home.
Stadler?
Yeah, what?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.